The Middle East is a very complex region and has long been a hotbed of conflict and tension, with Saudi Arabia and Iran locked in bitter rivalry for decades. However, there has been a breakthrough in this long-standing feud, thanks in large part to China. China has been playing an increasingly important role in the Middle East in recent years, both economically and diplomatically. And now China has brokered an historic peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, two of the region's most powerful nations. The deal that China have brokered will lead to a resuming of diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran after that relationship broke down in 2016, following Iranian demonstrators storming the Saudi embassy in Tehran following Riyadh's execution of a prominent Shia Muslim cleric. For China, brokering this deal in the Middle East represents a significant triumph. Let's take a look at why. Firstly, the fact that China was able to successfully broker this deal indicates its growing influence in the Middle East. As the world's largest importer of oil, China has increasingly become interested in the region's politics and conflicts. Its role in mediating the Saudi-Iran conflict demonstrates its ability to play a constructive role in the region's affairs and suggests that it is viewed as a neutral and respected actor by both countries. Secondly, the deal reflects China's strategic interest in the Middle East. With its Belt and Road Initiative, China has been expanding its economic presence in the region. The Saudi-Iran deal could help to reduce regional tensions and create a more stable environment for Chinese investments and trade. Lastly, the deal may have implications for China's relationship with the United States. The US has long been a key ally of Saudi Arabia and has taken a tough stance against Iran, including imposing economic sanctions. The China brokered deal will certainly reduce US influence in the region and weaken its relationship with Saudi Arabia. It will also likely lead to a shift in the balance of power in the Middle East, with China emerging as a key player. For many years there has been conflict in the Middle East, and up to now the only supposed peacemaker has been the USA. However, the US failed to bring any peace at all to the region, instead favouring war and destruction. Just look at the US's invasion of Iraq, which it turns out was all based on a pack of lies. So in the eyes of many, the USA has lost all its credibility in the Middle East. I'm quite sure that there were alarm bells going off in Washington when the news of this peace deal broke. While the US are busy fighting a war against Russia using Ukraine as its proxy, China has brokered possibly one of the most significant peace deals in the last 40 to 50 years. And I think that is something that takes a great deal of skill and diplomacy, and is something that China should be commended for. So what does this deal actually mean for the Middle East and for the world as a whole? For starters, it could help to bring an end to some of the deadliest conflicts in the region, such as the ongoing war in Yemen. The war in Yemen has been raging for more than 6 years, causing widespread death and destruction. But with Saudi Arabia and Iran now on the same page, there is hope that a peaceful resolution can be found. Of course, there are many other conflicts and issues to be resolved in the Middle East, but this peace deal could be a significant step in the right direction. The China brokered peace deal will be seen by many countries as a sign of China's growing influence on the global stage. And speaking of influence, China's economic ties to the Middle East are also likely to be strengthened by this peace deal. China has been investing heavily in the region in recent years, building infrastructure projects and importing oil. With the Middle East potentially becoming a more stable and peaceful place, these economic ties will likely become even stronger, which would be a win-win situation for both China and the Middle East. Another major implication of this deal is how it could affect the global oil market, which has long been dominated by Saudi Arabia and Iran. Currently, Saudi Arabia is the world's largest oil exporter, while Iran is the fourth largest. The United States was once the world's largest buyer of oil, and at that time signed a deal with Saudi Arabia that all oil sales must be settled in US dollars, which made the US dollar the de facto currency for oil trade, and hence the US dollar became the world's reserve currency. And as almost every country in the world needs to buy oil, then every country requires to have US dollars. This is where the term petrodollar came from. Having the US dollar as the world's reserve currency gives the USA privileges that no other country in the world has, and allows the USA to print almost as much new money as it wishes to support its massive spending and military budget, which is significantly larger than any other country in the world. However, with China's increasing global influence and its push to establish the yuan as an alternative reserve currency, this may change in the very near future. The Saudi Arabia and Iran peace deal is just one example of China's efforts to deepen its economic ties with the Middle East and reduce its reliance on the US dollar. In fact, China has already made several moves to promote the use of the yuan in international trade. It has established currency swap agreements with over 30 countries, including Saudi Arabia and Iran, allowing them to trade directly in their respective currencies, bypassing the US dollar. China is also the world's largest buyer of Saudi Arabian oil and is already in advanced talks with the Saudi leadership to price some of those oil contracts in Chinese yuan. When this finally happens, it will be a major turning point in the US-Saudi relationship, as it will finally signal the beginning of the end of the US petrodollar. This will lead to a decrease in demand for the US dollar, which will have significant implications for the US economy and its global power. The US dollar's status as the global reserve currency has allowed the US to run persistent trade deficits and maintain a large military presence overseas, which has helped to protect American power around the world. However, if the US dollar were to lose its status as the dominant global currency, it could lead to a decrease in demand for US Treasury bonds, which in turn could lead to a rise in interest rates and a decline in the value of the dollar. This could harm the US economy and its ability to project its power and influence around the world. Meanwhile, China stands to benefit from a decrease in demand for the US dollar. As one of the world's largest holders of US Treasury bonds, China has long been concerned about the stability of the dollar and its potential impact on its own economy. By promoting the use of the yuan in international trade, China can reduce its dependence on the US dollar and increase its own economic power and influence. The peace deal, brokered by China, is just one example of how China is increasing its economic and political influence in the Middle East, and how this could potentially impact the global balance of power. As China continues to grow and asserts its influence on the world stage, it will be interesting to see just how the US responds and how the global balance of power evolves in the years to come. Together with other world events that have occurred over the past couple of years, it is now more obvious than ever that we are finally moving away from a world dominated by the USA and its rules-based order, a system that always favours the USA, to a more multipolar world where many more countries are involved in defining the rules. That can only be a good thing, and the sooner the USA come to terms with this new multipolar world, then the sooner the world may become a more peaceful place. I hope you did enjoy that video. Consider hitting the like button if you did. But as always, for now, take care.